Hey guys, welcome back to Fight Tonight channel. Gervonta Davis, ridiculed by fans for his body transformation ahead of Frank Martin fight. As usual, Gervonta Davis is in the headlines, but not for boxing. The American boxer is training hard to prepare for his yet-to-be official fight against Frank Martin on June 22nd. However, it's his body transformation that has seized the eyeballs, and the fans have gone berserk. What has the WBA lightweight champion done? He recently uploaded a clip on the internet, and he appeared jacket. He seems to have added more mass to his frame and is lean and ripped, but the fans were not satisfied, as they found a way to mock him. What did they say? Boxing Kingdom uploaded the clip and claimed that the 29-year-old boxer was at 45 body fat ahead of his rumored fight. They wrote, "Boxing star Gervonta Davis absolutely ripped leading up to his bout against Frank Martin, estimated between 4–5% body fat." Fans, who also had some jeeps in the store, harshly contested the claim. Notably, many bodybuilders keep the fat percentage close to 5 before tournaments and competitions, as muscles, veins, and striation pop out and are prominently visible. This was not the case at this time, so that became a focal point when fans flooded the comment section. Davis at 29-0 is set to fight Martin on June 22nd. An Amazon Prime Video pay-per-view. While he is coming off a year-long break, many fans will back him to back a win. Meanwhile, Martin at 18-0 is also undefeated, but had a dismal performance against Artem Harutyunyan, and so is an underdog in this context. It remains to be seen how Davis' beef fight up physique will make a difference in the fight. Fans on social media believe Tank Davis is having kittens with worry about his fight with Martin, who despite being a limited guy, is a step up in class from the random run-of-the-mill fighters he is been padding his record with for the last 11 years. Is an insecure Tank Davis overcompensating for his fears by training feverishly 2 months out? As mid as Martin is, he is worlds better than Tank's last 3 opponents, Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Garcia, and Rolando Romero. While it's good that Tank is in excellent shape, it might not be the wisest thing for him to be on weight with 2 months ago for his match against Martin. A weak opponent means a weak victory. With that said, Martin isn't an elite fighter, so Tank Davis can afford to be a little weak and train for this fight without it impacting his performance. Martin looked awful in his last fight against the fringe contender Artem Harutyunyan last July. For that reason, Tank won't get credit for beating him, and he would have been better off fighting one of the more well-admired fighters. Like Shakur Stevenson, Raymond Muratella, Tank has been a world champion since 2011. And has never unified his titles against any champ, despite being popular enough to fight anybody. Some see that as clear evidence that he is being a calculated cherry picker who has selected his opposition with care, picking vulnerable fighters to capture his belts and advance his titles. Fans wanted to see Gervonta, that is, step it up against a good fighter next after he beats the heavily muscled but slow Martin on June 22nd. It will be a good idea for Tank to fight Shakur while he is still young, because that fight would be easy if he waits 2 or 3 years. Thanks for watching guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.